Okay, everybody behave. We're on YouTube Live. This will be for the YouTube folks, and there's not really going to be any YouTube folks. This will be the pre-show.
Pre-show?
Yeah, the short pre-show.
Nice.
I love podcasts that give you a little bit of behind the scenes, especially if you're willing to go out of the way to get it.
Right.
So,
let's see. Hold on a second here.
You found us. We're on. And now you're going to use up all your bandwidth watching us and get very confused at the delay.
Oh, no, I don't get confused. I do this all the time, man.
You already got
I just want to see what we look like. If it looks a little bit different, then and it does. It's interesting to see it. You know, how we look on what I'm seeing on Skype versus what you're putting out there. So that's really cool. Very cool.
Okay, so I'm going to take you guys out for a moment. Get the official show started in 5 seconds. Wondered how far civilization would have progressed if mankind had never learned to talk. Or conversely, how much farther we might have progressed without that liability. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary, North Carolina, this is the Triangle Talk Show, a program for and about the Triangle area, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Cary, plus or minus. We'll toss in Smithfield. Fayetteville if you want. And we keep getting these guys in Charlotte. And we are for you guys. And let's see. This is going to be episode 5. It's a bull session. Fatherhood. May 6, 2018 on the Triangle Talk Show. And I'm going to welcome the guests. I'm going to welcome back, first of all, on the left side of your radio is Lee Clark, Kal-El, in his secret identity, otherwise known as Superman. Shh. Yeah, I know. Not supposed to tell anybody. And, since this is an audio podcast that just happens to have some video, you got to talk so everyone can hear what you sound like. Hello, Lee.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? How y'all doing?
Okay, so that's Lee. Now you can shut up. And brand new to the podcast, but not to the meetup group, the podcasters meetup group. So it's another podcaster, Brandon Handley, who does a podcast called Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I guess we're going to figure out what that's all about. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me on today.
And you are in Charlotte, right?
I am actually right outside the Raleigh area.
Oh, how did I get Charlotte from you?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I don't know. So what part of town are you in?
Right outside. I mean, down
East
past Fuquay Varina. You familiar? I don't know.
Yeah,
down that way. Yeah.
We're Fuquay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You said Fuquay. Come on.
Yeah, that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's
Fuquay Varina.
Fuquay Varina.
That's how it's pronounced. Fuquay Varina.
Fuquay Varina. Let's do North Carolina town pronunciations for a second. See how we can do.
I can tell you, Gary. I can tell you this. There was a whole bunch of reasons I wasn't going to move in that town. The first reason was because we didn't know how to pronounce it. We weren't going to try, and we had enough problems trying to pronounce Fuquay Varina. We weren't moving in there because we have a bunch of people looking at us and having this exact conversation.
So when I lived in Illinois and I started my broadcasting career in central Illinois, we had a town, we had several towns. There was an Athens, which if you live in Greece, you would call Athens. They called it Athens. A lot of people have heard of the tiny town at the very southern end of Illinois called Cairo. They call it Cairo, not Cairo.
Cairo, yeah.
And there was another town called Rio Springs and a San Jose. So we love our local pronunciations. I'm trying to figure out what I can say in North Carolina. I know how to pronounce Pasquotank County and Perquimans County. I think I can do a good job of Calibet Springs. And
that's a good one.
What else have we got out there that just drives? When you get, what you can tell, you get a new TV news anchor in town. And the first thing they do is toss Fuquay Varina at him.
Yeah, I know I would. I would.
And they do a Ron Burgundy. They stop cold. And in the town of how do we say that?
Right.
Icard or Ickard. Going down 40, going towards App State and everything from Greensboro, you run into Ickard or Icard.
So you don't know. Just seen it on
either.
the signs.
Yes, Ickard or Icard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that one is.
I'd have to bring up.
Gentlemen. I'll tell you this, gentlemen. There's a beach called, if you look at the spelling, it says Top Sail.
Oh, Topsail.
Yeah, Topsail.
Topsail. What the?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Topsail. Yeah.
It says Top Sail, but it comes out as Topsail.
Yeah. Well, of course, there's
Right?
there's Wendell.
Yeah.
You know, it was not Oliver Wendell Holmes. Oliver Wendell Holmes.
No.
Down by Charlotte, there's Concord. Concord.
Concord.
Not Concord, but Concord.
Concord.
Yep.
That's how I'll say it, Concord.
Yeah. It's people like their local pronunciations. I'm glad I live in just plain old Cary, I guess.
Well, there was one in New Jersey. I know you. I know a lot of people from New Jersey. And you said that too, but they don't say Newark in New Jersey. They say Nork.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody want to try that town in southeastern Virginia? Begins with an N.
Which one?
It's right in the Hampton Roads area. Yeah, Norfolk.
North.
We don't drink.
Norfolk.
We don't
Norfolk.
swear. Norfolk. Oh, by the way, I don't know if this means anything to you, Brennan, but we have clicked the explicit button on the show. So
Okay.
you may or may not participate, and we generally, we're not potty mouth like crazy, but if one leaks out.
Just by the saying potty mouth, that just sounds like innocence. I don't know where to go from there. But we'll listen. We'll stay the course, and I'll participate where needed.
Okay. Oh, this is me. I'm Gary Pierce. I'm host of the show. You guys, by the way, are not guests. You are all co-hosts.
Nice.
Nice. You are North Carolina podcasters.
This is a good time, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Gary, man, tell us a little bit more about, I don't know that much about you. Can I get to know more about you on this show? Is that what we're doing here?
Sure, because you're a podcaster, so clearly you know how to do interviews. This is, got three cooks. No,
yeah, we got three cooks, one
and
kitchen.
Nobody's sitting out in the restaurant to eat the meal.
Right. It's tough, man. It's tough when you get you got three heads. But you talked about being in the broadcast industry. What's got you into podcasting? You showed us your setup. Can you flip through your setup right now and show the audience kind of what you're running, like a high-powered octane rig there? Yeah. I run with a USB cord and some crappy Wi-Fi and every once in a while some pretty cool graphics. But I mean, you are running full throttle, brother. Flip through it. Show people what you've got running.
Well, I keep trying to tell people that this is an audio show.
Yeah.
So the video is just because it's here, but
eye candy.
Yeah. This camera will show the messy studio room. This is the studio in the bonus room above the garage, in the north side of Cary. And sitting here in front of me is a computer that's got a program called Wirecast. It does video switching. It does the audio recording. There's an audio mixer here and monitors. Over my shoulder shot. This is a 5-camera deal, and it's only a 5-camera deal because I happen to have them. I've used these for shooting programs outside of doing podcasting.
Okay.
I've been most of my career. This is the other camera. I call this the micro cam, because it is sitting on the microphone. Okay,
I got it.
So there it is.
Not because it's small and spy-like.
No, it's not really big, but it's not that small. Most of my career, I've been a video editor. So making TV commercials and a few programs, but mostly commercials. I started that in Chicago. But the beginning of my broadcasting career, I was a disc jockey, and a disc jockey wannabe. At a couple of really small stations, one in Wisconsin.
WKRP?
Smaller. One in a small town in Wisconsin and one in that central Illinois town. And I went back to Chicago, got married, went to school, and I wasn't anywhere near good enough to get a job even on the poorest station around Chicago.
Okay.
So I got recruited from a fellow in the ham radio hobby that knew me, he was the engineer at the NBC TV station.
Okay.
And he was leaving his engineer job to become the chief engineer of a startup television production company. This is way back in 1973. In 1973, there weren't a lot of little television production companies, little boutiques. There were just, big companies that made shows and TV commercials, and everything was done on film. And this idea of videotape was just catching on. The technology was just getting possible. And so they needed an audio guy, and he said, "You got audio experience?" And I said, "Yeah, kinda." So
sure.
They hired me and very quickly taught me how to do the video editing thing. So it wasn't what I really wanted to do for a career, but it ended up being the career.
Okay.
With a break in the middle, I'm going to talk about that thing that caused me to take this break in the middle of that career a little bit later on in the show. You can guess. Yeah. You can guess what we're talking about. The audience is going, huh? And I went and did another radio gig up in a small town in Arizona.
Okay.
And my first radio experiences, I was terrible. In this one, for some reason, without having any experience, I got better.
Right.
And so I always wanted to do radio, but at my level, it didn't pay the bills. Couldn't make a living out of it. So I moved to North Carolina. Came here because my dad was retired in the Pinehurst area, and got another video editing job in Raleigh. And so I've been here ever since. That was starting in 1990.
Okay.
So I haven't picked up a Southern accent for some reason.
You've remained kept that elusive.
Got my Chicago accent. I got my Chicago accent. Get the Bears.
Right. Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, and what I tell people if they give me any heat, and some locals have said, you've been here 28 years, you're accepted. So, look, if you're a local, if you were born here, you're here because you were born here. I came here on purpose. I chose this place. So
sure,
there we go.
Yeah, man. Welcome, North Carolina.
So you're a local? You've been here?
I've been here for about 4 years, coming up on 5. Came down this way outside of Philadelphia area.
Okay.
And just barely even explored the space. So
did you turn out the lights when you left Philadelphia?
I turned out the lights when I left.
You weren't the last man out.
No, sir.
But everybody's been coming down here.
Oh yeah, look,
and this
man,
this place is exploding.
It is blowing up. It's crazy. I told you where I live in that space. It's just like I grew up outside of Philadelphia and watched it grow. And the same thing's happening here. It's just blowing up the way the suburbs did out in Philadelphia. So it's really just kind of like a repeat.
Yeah. And Chicago was, the same way. And I guess it's probably still growing, but I mean, it was a huge city. And coming down here, people complained about traffic and stuff down here. But yeah, if you're from a really big city, you go, yeah, you don't have any traffic here. You sit for 30 minutes on I-40. That is not a traffic jam.
That's like a retreat, man. I consider that just a nice downtime.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
So in previous shows, we know what Lee does. So now it's time to find out what you do for your show.
My show. So a big portion of my show is reaching out to other fathers and having conversations about fatherhood. A lot of times, what I like to do is find a father in the entrepreneurial space, talk about what got them into that space. I like to really highlight what it is that they do, so that they get the chance to share what they're doing on a platform other than theirs. And, that's my way of kind of showing them gratitude, paying it forward. And then I talk to them just basically about fatherhood. I usually have like the 5 general questions. I say, hey, what are your thoughts on fatherhood? What's the purpose of fatherhood? I usually ask them a little bit about their relationship with their parents. A lot of times I'll ask them a question about whether or not faith plays into their parenting style, or if it played into their family dynamic at all. Usually, and find out. I'm an avid reader myself, but I haven't been up until more recent years, and so I like to ask the fathers kind of if they've got a book they'd like to contribute to the list, if they've got one that they gift a lot, if they've got something that's impacted their life in a huge way. A few more fatherhood questions. But I mean, it's just really great to be able to have honest conversations about fatherhood, and really not focus on most of the conversations that men have tend to be about their jobs, or what did you do this weekend? What game, football, sports, or something like that. So it's just kind of cool to have a deeper conversation. And most of these guys that I'm talking to are just really doing the hustle and grind, and doing the living life with passion and purpose type thing, and still trying to be good dads, and it all plays into it, and we're doing that as models for our own children. And so that's what's happening with fatherhood for the rest of us.
So that for the rest of us thing, that makes me think that there must be somebody else out there that's not the rest of us. So what's the demarcation, or is that just a clever way to title it?
If you, there's as I said in part of that, one of the things I often ask the other fathers is, how does faith play into your life? A lot of Christians out there, we're surrounded by, a lot of, I don't know if it's, a lot of Baptist churches around here. A lot
you
of
were into Bible Belt, son.
Yeah. So
listen,
the Bible Belt. A lot of people go to church. A lot of people, find their community there. A lot of people find their community in sports. A lot of people find their community in like all these fixed spaces. And in all honesty, it's not something that I ever found my space in. And I was like, well, what about the rest of us? People that haven't quite found their place, no matter how old they are, and haven't really found like this clique that's clicked with them, or just kind of has some other thoughts and feelings about what they think the world should be like, and they're dads anyways, and they need to have that conversation. And that's so whoever hasn't landed into one of those other buckets by now, there's fatherhood for the rest of us.
Okay. So, Lee, are you a dad? Are you old enough?
No. I am old enough. Yes, I am old enough. I'm 29. I'm actually turning 30 this year. So I'm old enough to be a dad, but
not mature enough.
Everybody hates me, so
we got a program segment for him a little bit later on.
I've already been married, and my marriage didn't produce any kids. And I've had relationships, but I have no kids so far to speak of.
That you know of.
That I know of, yes. But I'm pretty confident that I don't have any kids.
Yeah. And although I am plenty old enough to be a father, grandfather, and almost a great-grandfather, I also am not.
Not a father.
I was married back in my 20s. That lasted 7 years, and ended for the same reason I left Chicago. We'll talk about that in a bit. And I married again once I got here to North Carolina, and married Cindy, and we've been married we just had our 20th anniversary.
Congratulations.
But we were both a little older than we wanted to be to start a family. Thank you. And so we decided not to, and we didn't want to adopt or anything. We have 5 cats. Fur babies. But that's where we put our energy in the family sort of thing. So the guys that you talk to, where do they come from? Your neighbors, or how do you find them? How do you get them on the show?
I talked to a couple locals. What did you call it? Catawba Springs? Is that how you pronounce it?
Calibit.
Calibit. I think there's a Catawba too, right? Like right over there.
Oh, there's Catawba, yeah.
Catawba, right? So I actually talked to the pastor over there. He was on the show. He's got 7 kids. Talked to one of the members of that church. He was one of the first people on the show, and one of the I just put the feelers out there, and most of the time at this point it's by reference or through social media. I just talked to a guy today that we connected, and I run a Facebook group, and the offer's usually out there because I think that every dad's got their story, every person's got their story to tell, and every dad is usually head down and thinks of themselves last, but they've usually got a pretty cool story to tell, and they don't usually take the opportunity to just think about how cool or great it is that whatever it is that they're doing is that great, and I just try to inspire them to share their story, and yeah, I mean that's it. So most of it comes from a lot of referrals. Biggest question I ask when I'm done with I ask 2 questions whenever I'm done with the interviews. The first question, I just ask them how the interview went for the guest, ask them for advice on improving, how it could have made it better for them. And then I always ask for a referral. I say, hey, if you know somebody that you think would be a good fit for the show, let me know. I'd love to have them on.
So how did you discover the existence of this thing we call podcasting and discover you wanted to do it and learn how?
So about two and a half years back, I kind of came out of a haze and realized that
also for later in the show.
Also for later in the show, I realized that I hadn't been living my life intentionally, right? I realized that I'd just been I'd skated through, and it had been pretty awesome, and I'd done pretty well for myself, inadvertently, quite accidentally, and I said, what would happen if I actually put some effort into this thing that I'm doing?
Oh, you'd screw it up, I know.
That could be what I'm doing now. I'm getting in the way of myself. And so what happened was I tuned into, started going to some other local meetups. Triangle Sales Think Tank was one of them. I think it's defunct right now, or it's restarted. But when it was started up, it was Triangle Sales Think Tank. Quite a few people, local people in there, had a really nice podcast. I started listening to that, and once you go podcast, I'm sure you never go back. I don't know. And I caught the bug. I really caught the bug, and I had actually bought a podcast program from a very another motivational speaker, and I bought the program. I checked out his program to do podcasting because I felt like I could do it. I just didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. And then I saw this guy selling, he sold me his podcast program. I watched the videos, and I was like, and he had a baseball cap on and a whiteboard, and just, I was like, is this real? Did I just pay for this? And I was like, I can do this. So
yeah.
So
it's the studio and the bonus room over the garage.
That's it. Yeah.
If you're old enough, it's Wayne's World. Remember that?
It is Wayne's World. Lee,
does that reference mean anything to you?
Yes, it means everything to me. I love Wayne's World.
Okay,
I'm not that young. I'm almost 30. Come on.
There may be somebody out there that we need to explain Wayne's World to.
I'm sure. Like, we should probably post a link or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to explain Wayne's World to anybody, it's
if they're like
a good point already.
Well, for one thing, no one. This is an early days show, so we have an audience that currently counts into the dozens, perhaps, if we're lucky. So let's pretend that we've got an audience of hundreds, tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands, absolutely.
And they range across the age spectrum. And so we've got a couple hundred people out there that are only like 16 years old.
They don't know Wayne's World.
They don't know Wayne's World.
Probably not. Okay. Probably not.
So it's an old Saturday Night Live routine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Michael Myers.
What I don't remember is how they conceived of the idea that they could do a TV show. Oh, because it's cable access.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't podcasting,
access.
there wasn't YouTube.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything on the internet. If there was video on the internet, it was in a picture about this big at about 2 frames per second.
Oh my god! And even if there was video, I still remember trying to load pictures
On dial-up,
with bitmaps, right? Like on dial-up,
Yeah.
and it would just scan across the screen and go, back and forth, and you wait 5 minutes, and then you're like, that picture sucks.
Yeah. So this was this was cable access, and why they had the studio in the guy's basement, I don't know. Because normally, if you do cable access, it's like what we used to call Time Warner Cable. They have a studio in Raleigh, and they do a bunch of shows. I don't know if anybody watches them. I can't see them because I don't have cable. But you can pitch them the idea of doing a show, and you probably have to come up with the funding to pay for their studio crew, and that'd be about it. And then you can be a TV star.
Nice.
Much better to do it in the YouTube podcasting way. Because with a $90 or $60
At your house,
Logitech,
with all
well,
your setup, I'm coming over to your house to produce.
Yeah, but with a little Logitech webcam, that's all you need, and a PC or a Mac, and you're on YouTube doing your own show. What I like to say, the great thing about podcasting is that anybody can do it. Anybody can have the reach of the most powerful radio station with the tallest antenna ever. And still you could do better. And the problem with that is that anyone can have the power of the biggest radio station ever.
I liken it to karaoke.
Yeah, anybody can sing.
It's pretty much like karaoke. And anybody can have the mic. They'll let anybody up on stage.
Yeah. So fortunately for the people that are watching or listening to this program, well, you've got 3 serious professionals. Don't try this at home. Yeah, he's going to go listen. Who's the other guy? Don't try this at home. I'm
the guy that says try it at home, and then if you fail, then I'm sorry for you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way,
try it home.
I'm also using the podcaster's golden microphone, the Heil PR40.
Nice.
My voice normally does not sound like this. The microphone makes me sound.
Microphone's making it happen.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're both using Apple, so yeah.
Yeah. I got the Yeti. Where's
But you're not talking. Yeti? You're not talking into it though.
Oh yeah.
I'm not real good at getting real close to the mic.
Oh, you are talking into it.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Well, your room is quiet enough that it's dealing with it.
I'm good because I wouldn't know what to do otherwise.
Yeah. It's slightly live and but probably just about right. This I'm going through all kinds of processing and stuff to make this sound right and to take. I mean, I got a computer. Here's my mic. Here's a computer with fan. And so I got all kinds of processing that's making that go away. So,
nice.
That you're not hearing, but Skype also kind of makes it go away. But if you go listen to the show, you'll say, well, where's all that noise? Gone. Because I know how. Got the
Do you do post-processing as well?
No, because I've got enough of the inline live processing that the file that I'm recording that becomes the audio part is clean. It's ready to go.
Got it. Gotcha.
The other thing I've done about this program, because I've been doing podcasting for 6 years. I did a different show.
Okay.
A ham radio show. And then before that, I was making DVDs and stuff, and I was just putting all kinds of effort into making the programs. And over at the meetup, a lot of the folks seriously produce their programs. Mm-hmm. They put music in, and they edit out all the ums and breaths, and lots of work. Yeah. And I didn't do that much work, but I really wanted to skinny it down to the point where when I push the stop button, I've got 15 more minutes worth of work to do, and things are done.
Yeah.
And I'm almost there. So it's more than 15 minutes worth, but it's about 2 hours, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, for those of you out there in the audience that are enjoying the live program, which I think is probably 0 right now.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah, tens of thousands.
There's a couple. Well, I got a couple of my friends listening and watching.
Nice.
My wife has requested that instead of starting the show at 9:00, which puts me going to bed about midnight, she would like me to start at 8. So,
does it really? We're on till midnight.
No, we usually do about an hour to 90 minutes.
I could do that.
Yeah, you could go to midnight.
Yeah, there's topics that we can actually go on longer, but we cut them short.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we go till 10, maybe 10:15, 10:30, and then again it takes me an hour or so to get the website going, get things all finished.
I got you. Well, let's hit a topic, man. Let's hit it.
All right. Well, your program was about men, and I just happened to catch an NPR program this morning. It's one of my favorites, and I listened to it as a podcast, not as on the air. I don't think I've listened to any on the air radio other than a couple of desperate minutes in the car when I wasn't going to drive that far and didn't want to hook up my phone. So I turned on the radio, and I do that, it's going to be WUNC NPR.
Gotcha.
The program is On the Media. There we go. On the Media. And they were doing the show about aggrieved men. They called it Making Sense of the Manosphere. Yeah. And evidently there's some men out there that think that life has given them a raw deal. And they are particularly angry at women because the women won't give them the time of day, much less sex. So I thought, well, you were coming on the show, and I watched some of your stuff, and it's it's fatherhood for the rest of us. It's going to be men.
Sure. Absolutely.
I thought, do any guys like that find their way either toward your show? Do you find guys that are like the world is against them, and boy, are they mad?
Yeah, I actually hang out with a lot of guys who kind of have their shit together, Gary. Like they're not focused on just trying to get some ass. They have families, so they've already accomplished feat number one. They've accomplished that, and they've seen some of the results, and they're really just focused on living their lives. So for the guys that are, I'm not really, I can't remember ever really being in that situation like you're talking about, and being mad at the world for not giving me my fair shake, let alone like whatever I wanted a la carte, right? So no, I don't run into too many people like that. It's a honest to God, and I'm really lucky in that sense that I've surrounded myself with a bunch of men who are kicking ass at life.
I got to become one of your good friends.
Yeah.
Although I am 68, so I think I've used up my time.
Nah, man, everybody's welcome. That's the best part about it. Actually, it's like I've got the group called Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, but there's a ton of other men's groups out there on the Facebook where they're being used for good and not all for. I think they're called memes. I like to call them Mimi. I don't know what the hell you're supposed to call them, but there's a lot of groups out there that are trying to help each other out, support each other. I guess kind of like a just support centers for men that are just trying to do their best. And there's not a whole bunch of at least not again. And this is just me and what I found myself surrounded by is guys that are saying, man, go get it. How can I help you out? Right. Everybody's supporting one another and to go for their goals. And relationships come up a little bit, but usually it's you just kind of tell the guys and I guess as it relates to this topic, it sounds like people who aren't deeply involved in relationships and who are out getting drunk every night, waking up alone, and that is a sad state of affairs. I'm sorry for them. They're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah. Lee, I think you're muted. Turn your mic back on.
Yeah, we go. Okay. Why you gotta call out me? Come on. No, but
are we calling you out?
Yeah, you're calling me out a little bit. No, sorry. But no, one thing I want to ask you, Brandon, is how do you really deal with everything? Just being I know you have kids and everything, but being a first-time father for everybody out there that's coming up on a first-time father, how did you deal with your wife being pregnant, everything like that? Did you still have kind of like power, so to speak, or whatever. How did you deal with that going through everything?
Well, I mean, I come from. My mom was a pretty powerful woman herself, and I respected her. I respect, kind of womanhood. She raised me herself for the most part. So I have a
no
huge
dad
respect.
in your life.
No dad in my life, and so I have a huge respect for women and what they go through. Giving birth is a pretty amazing experience. I was really excited to be a father because
how many kids do you have?
I have two boys. We have two boys, and so I was super thrilled to be a dad, and tried to do whatever I could to make sure that my wife was comfortable, that had a healthy pregnancy, and I got to be honest, man. There's really not a whole lot that to me I found to be sexier than the woman carrying your baby. It's like, I mean, that's pretty hot. I don't have it for, I'm not going to go look at another pregnant woman and feel the same way. I mean, that's somebody else's kid and not mine. And I feel that way even about kids today. Even when they come out, I still like mine more than I like most others. And so it's not hard, man. It's just it's nothing that there's really nothing you can prepare for though either. Until it's just one of those things that you got to experience yourself.
Did you feel ready to have kids just before you did, or did you feel like?
Yeah, man. Well, look, I was like 34, 35. I can't, recall my precise age. And you get to that age, and it was actually kind of entertaining. My wife, look, she's the same age as me. She looked at me. She goes, "What do we do?" I was like, "Well, we're not 16 anymore, so I think we can handle this." Right? So,
maybe not financially or even emotionally, but just did you want kids?
Because we hadn't considered it. It was not on purpose. But after we had our first one, it was awesome. Yeah. Really a great experience.
All of my life, I've never felt mature enough or like it was something I really wanted. Mm-hmm. The thing I've heard about is that when you have a kid, mm-hmm. that attitude changes. Suddenly they are your focus in life, and things have changed, and you can't imagine not.
Yeah.
And from never having any, I can't, I've never crossed that threshold. So I have, I sort of take it on faith that happens.
Yeah. There's really like no comparison, but I can only imagine, where I'd be right now. I mean, we're going to get into a couple things later, but my biggest thing right now is, when you first have them, they are your whole focus, and you actually kind of forget about yourself for a little bit, and maybe that's all part of the process. I don't know. My kids are still young, coming up on 8 and 9, but now it's just kind of shining a light a little bit back more on the relationship, because the relationship with your wife, it's easy to lose in trying to raise kids because you don't know how long you can keep them alive for. Right. I mean, that is the challenge. You're like, well, they send you home. There is no manual. There is nothing that says, hey, this is exactly how you do it, and you're going to nail it every time as long as you do it right like this. That doesn't happen, man. So the first 6 months are a blur, and I'm not going to lie. I think the first 3 years are a blur.
I was distracted by Lee for a moment. Video coming and going, but I'm not going to say I wish I had that experience, but I can appreciate it. And my family life, I did have a father. I had an alcoholic mother. I had a somewhat absentee father because of business, and I don't think I got super warm, tight, close parenting. But if you didn't have a dad and yet you discovered the thing on how to do it, and you see there's no manual. Actually, there's too many of them, I'm sure, out there on the web.
I'm sure, yeah.
And now there's a podcast.
Yeah, there's plenty. There's a lot of really good podcasts. You started off, and I can tell you kind of my experience with starting off the podcast, thinking I'm trying to help people do the fatherhood. Most of the people, it's pretty innate. It's pretty innate. A lot of the guys I run into, they're doing their best, and that's really all I think any father's ever done. what that looks like over time. Like you talked about your dad being away on business, but he was probably doing all that he knew how to do in terms of provide for his family at that point in time, right? He did what was expected of him and didn't really know any other way. And I think that each generation, is iterative of the one before it and just tries to improve on their past experiences.
He could, if he was still alive, and he died a long time ago, he certainly could say that he was just doing what everybody did. Back in those days. I was born in 1949, so across the 50s and early 60s when I was a young kid. All right. It occurs to me that had I thought just a little bit harder about connecting those two topics, I would realize that the guys that are angry at women because they're not getting any sex, they would not be fathers. They would not be
Probably not. Probably not.
Did not think hard enough about that.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, they're not necessarily fathers. They could be guys that are like dorky, that no girls wanted to be with them or nothing. That wanted kids and stuff like that. You can't necessarily bring it down into one thing. You have to expand it out to like people that are not as out there as we are, so to speak.
I think I understand, or I don't know. All right. So we can move on.
Yeah, we'll move on.
The next
we can understand. We can spend 20, 30 minutes talking about that thing. Yeah.
The next thing I wanted to talk about was this early voting that we just finished being in the middle of. Did you guys vote? Well, Lee, you don't vote, right? Because your vote doesn't count. You've only got one. I've got hundreds.
Well, no, not necessarily. I vote when I find a candidate I really want to vote for. When it comes to the presidential, it doesn't matter who I vote for because electoral college is going to do whatever they want to begin with.
Sort of. Electoral college is a strategy. It's a strategy you have to be aware of. So you've been down here for 4 years, Brendan. What do you think of North Carolina politics?
I don't pay any
attention.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
I do go vote though. I guess I missed out on this last one, and I ran to vote like a few months ago.
Tuesday is the official
coming up here
election.
Vote,
we just been doing early voting that ended yesterday.
Yeah, I don't even know what we're voting for, but I'll go.
Yeah, Brandon, how can you vote for like people down here if you don't know who they? That's why I don't vote, because 95% of the people running, I have no clue who they are.
Yeah.
And you're new to this area, like you said. How can you vote? Like, you're just voting for just some other political party or something.
I'll look for some
news. So I can recommend that you go back and look at a couple of the previous podcasts that I put out. Because I have concentrated on my precinct, which won't be the same. There'll be different candidates. Right. But I'll show you how to go find who's out there. Yeah. So this election in North Carolina, this is kind of a ho-hum election. The highest office that we're electing is Congress, U.S. Congress. There's no senators. We're not voting for a governor, and obviously not president. So it's not huge, but it is perhaps more consequential because we are part of the potential blue wave of moving Republicans out and putting Democrats in. Whether that happens or not, don't know. We'll see. Some people have said that North Carolina is going to be bypassed by the blue wave, and our districts are fairly seriously gerrymandered to give Republicans a very strong advantage. So, but that's part of what this program is. I'm dedicating this program to look at, not this episode, but the program in general. So I've done a couple looking at what's going on. The other thing that if you're in Wake County that we are electing is your county commissioners. And this will be an area that would probably catch your attention because the big issue is school funding. Mm-hmm. And there's 7 county commissioner districts. and a candidate to be elected in each one, but you don't have to live in the district you're electing people for. You get to vote in all 7 districts. 5 of those districts in the Democratic primary have, Leah's going, I don't care.
No, I'm not. It's not. I don't care. I'm thinking that's messed up. How you can vote for a district you're not even in?
Well, it's basically 7 people on the board, on the county board, for the county. Why
That's what I was shaking my head.
And I think that the reason that they divide up the districts is that a commissioner has to live in the district that they're going to represent. So that makes sure that all of the areas of the county get a commissioner whose interests are aligned with the people that live around them.
Okay, but what happens when you have a guy that's in the district running against a guy that's out of the district?
Well, you don't. You have,
because they got to live in the district.
Yeah, there's basically 5 separate spots on the ballot for District 1 through 7, except there's 2 districts that have no competition in the Democratic Party. And I don't know whether you're registered Democrat, in Republican, or unaffiliated.
Technically, I'm unaffiliated. Technically, I'm registered unaffiliated.
And I'm unaffiliated. If you are unaffiliated, you can take a ballot from either party in the primary.
Yeah.
If you're registered Republican, you can only take a Republican ballot. And if that's the case, you got nobody to vote for because there's nobody running against any of the Republicans. So there are, at least in my precinct, there are no Republican ballots to get. Everybody who was in line with me, and that was here at the Herb something center in Cary, the early voting was going on. Everybody that was in line with me was a Democrat or an independent. There was a libertarian ballot that you could choose. There wasn't very much to choose from on the libertarian ballot, but there was one. So being unaffiliated, I could choose anything. So I chose a Democratic ballot this time, and then got to choose from those. There were 3 people running for Congress from my district, my congressional district, and you're in a different one than I am. And there were the 5 county commissioners, and that was it. That's the whole ballot. The thing I was going to talk about the county ballot for the commissioners was there are 5 challengers, and the challengers all come from, not necessarily all from the school board, but they are from an allegiance to the school board, and they want the county to spend more money on the schools. The school board sets policies, but they've got no taxing authority. They can't generate their own money. They've got to go to the county board and say, please, sir, can we have some money? And the county board says, well, we got schools, but we've also got a bunch of other things we need to spend money on. So, yeah, we're going to give you some more money, but we're not going to give you everything you want. And the challengers that are coming from the school board zone are saying, we sort of understand that, but we still think you're not giving us enough. And they've got a pretty laser focus on school board issues, whereas the incumbents in the county.
Is that why we have the walkouts planning on for all the teachers here in the next week or 2?
Yeah. Now we're talking about Wake County, and you're up in Durham.
Well, no, I'm actually in Guilford County, but all of the teachers in North Carolina are planning a walkout here in the next week or 2.
I don't think that's going to hit Wake County very much. I think I know it's going to hit Durham. I'm not sure how much that's going to hit in Wake County.
It's going to hit Guilford hard.
Yeah.
I definitely can commend that. It's going to hit Guilford hard.
Yeah, North Carolina is still pretty low on the scale of teacher pay. They boosted it up a lot. But
it's still not good, though.
Yeah, we used to be in the low 40s out of 50, and now we're in the low 30s out of 50. So we got better, but we got a ways to go.
We're actually down. I think if you look at all the other states, I think we're in the last 10 in what we pay our teachers. We're actually down in the bottom.
Well, I think we're in the low 30s. I think if I recall correctly. So anyway, you can sort of, as you look at the ballot that you could get, you will at least have in a Democratic ballot, you'll have at least the 5 county commissioner races to choose from, plus picking a congressional candidate. And once again, that's only in the Democratic Party. I'm not sure in your precinct whether there's a Republican contention for Republican or not. If there's only one Republican running for the nomination, they've won the primary. Congratulations, you've won. That's all there is. There's no reason to print up a ballot with one name on it. So, and primary is hard to understand sometimes for people. The general election gets a little clearer. Even
then, how much does it hurt us as a whole having a fight between two parties all the time? Because even if we have a Democrat or Republican win this one, and next election we'll have a Democrat, the opposite. How much does it actually improve anything? We have two parties fighting against each other. There's never actually going to be any improvement.
See, you are very political.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
I mean, how can there be any improvement when it's just two parties fighting against each other all the time?
So, some people take the attitude that a government in stalemate that is not doing very much is the best government we can get, because when a government does a lot, then we have trouble. I'm not really in that camp, but I've certainly heard that expressed. No, you have to persuade the public to elect enough on one side or the other that they can get things done. And right now, the North Carolina legislature is a supermajority of Republicans. They've gotten a lot done. Yeah. I don't like most of what they've done, but they've gotten a lot done.
Yes, they have. Yeah.
So they're crimped a little bit by having a Democratic governor, but North Carolina governor position is fairly weak. So the legislature is imbalanced in the amount of power they've got, and with the number of Republicans that are elected to it, it's even more imbalanced, and they've taken advantage of their ability to draw the district lines for voting. They did that in 2011 to help make it more likely that Republicans will be elected, as many as possible. And that's pretty much what's happened. I'm wearing this purple shirt on as a sort of a fond remembrance of North Carolina being a purple state. It's being sort of centered. And while the electorate is still somewhat that way, the legislature is not. It leans heavily Republican. So it's to some extent, because of gerrymandering. A future topic, one of my favorites. So anyway, election day is Tuesday at your polling place near you. And mine, this isn't my polling place. It is for the early voting, but it's not for regular voting. When I was there, I ran into my 2 Democratic candidates, 2 guys vying for state senators, and those are the election that's up for me, state senators. Wiley Nickel and Luis Toledo. I wanted to get them on the show, and so I did talk to them. They weren't up for doing an interview while I was there, but they said they would do it later on. One of them will win on Tuesday, so I'll get to talk to a winner, and I'll talk to the other guy, because he's, whichever one it is, they're still very involved. So
that'll be exciting.
Yeah, try to do that. It's a little hard if you can't show an audience and show why come on this show.
Mm-hmm.
It's good practice for you. But state senators do not get a lot of media. Yeah, I'm going to be on that guy's podcast, that he does it from the bonus room over the garage on the north side of Cary.
He doesn't know where you're coming from.
Yeah, he does.
Tell him your studio.
You can watch the show. I'll have him come in on Skype, so he never has to actually see the studio.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Where else are we going to go? We've lost Lee for a moment. Could be back.
I guess he's going for a refill.
Yeah. Well, his roommate was bringing him pretty consistently. I think he's getting lubricated.
God bless him. Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a minute. So the next thing I got on my rundown, and you're welcome to toss in anything that you want, and from any aspect of life.
Following your lead. Following your lead. Enjoying. I know we're co-hosting, but following your lead, it's your feed.
Okay. So what I was going with next is Facebook thinks I am a radical Republican.
That's awesome.
Facebook thinks that I work for Breitbart News. It keeps sending me all of this right-wing stuff. And so I was looking at a little bit of it today. Today we're focusing on Boy Scouts. Now, within your family stuff, is there much scouting going on?
So we talked about scouting, but one of the things is just, and it's kind of rather unfortunate because I know that it's very beneficial in quite a lot of areas. It's just all the bad press historically, right? And so we kind of shied away from it, just primarily based off of everybody else's bad experiences. But it's probably like 10.
The press I'm aware of is that they got the black eye for excluding, first of all, gay scouts and then gay leaders.
Yeah.
And then they reversed themselves on that and got a black eye for reversing themselves on it. Do you want to say which side of that coin you come down on?
Which side of the coin I come down on, and as it relates to
whether Boy Scouts should or not have gay members and leaders.
Look, I mean, I think sexual preference shouldn't really be discussed in Boy Scouts
or podcasts.
I don't think that's the place for it. If somebody finds out what you do with your spare time, then that's something else. It doesn't put anybody's lives at risk if you're gay in the Boy Scouts, as far as I know. So that really shouldn't matter. The influence is only really going to come if there's somebody else who's feeling, having gay tendencies, and it's strictly an influence, and perhaps, there's some really cool gay Boy Scout, and there's like a young kid who's feeling like they might want to be gay, and they've got somebody that they can look up to and have that conversation with. I think that they should kind of leave that alone.
That would be a positive.
Yeah.
And there is an element of people that say, well, you can be convinced to become gay, and that a gay Boy Scout leader will be trying to recruit young boys to become gay. I don't think that it works that way. I don't remember choosing to be heterosexual. I don't remember when I marked that on the form.
Yeah, I disagree totally there.
So you think you can change someone's gender identity?
Well, no, not necessarily that, but I wouldn't say what you said. Like, I grew up just like Brandon, growing up in the Boy Scouts, everything. There was a lot of things that had to do with all boys. It was sort of, just meditated towards boys. And now that we have a girl in there, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. If girls want to learn the same things, it's cool with me. If guys want to learn the same thing that Girl Scouts do, which is selling cookies and doing some other things here and there, that's fine with me. But if they want to come over to Boy Scouts, that's fine. They're doing things, they're enjoying their life, gaining some knowledge on what's going on in the world. So I don't think you can knack them for that. So I don't like it, so to speak, but at the same time, I realize the world's evolving. Women are getting more and more powerful. They're getting stronger. They're learning to, believe in themselves and everything, and they're getting things. I don't want to hinder them. I don't want to hinder anybody at all.
Okay.
If we're talking about whether or not women and or girls should be in Boy Scouts, I disagree. I think that it's actually really healthy to have a separation of the sexes, especially. I just do. The more time that I spend in kind of some of these men's groups, the more times that I spend doing the fatherhood for the rest of us, the more that I realize that there's been kind of a homogenization of the male and female aspect. And guess what? We're fucking different. All right. Women are women and men are men, and that's okay. You know what? We can accept that they're going to approach something differently. They can do things that we can't do, and we can do things that they can't do. And sometimes it's okay to leave all that shit alone.
Yeah. That's the headline. That's the what you put out in the showroom window. There's a lot behind it, and that, you have to look at what's really behind it. The devil, being in those details. This is what my Facebook was trying to tell me. In a normal world, boys would be in the Boy Scouts, girls would be in the Girl Scouts. And then somebody decided to up the ante a little bit and say, "Hey, Boy Scouts 2018, I love my camping trip." And so the woman or the girl that's in there is obviously pregnant. And that turned out to be a popular theme, because here's another one with a pregnant Girl Scout.
Be prepared.
So, the guys that generated those are jerks.
Yeah. Yes.
Whether it's a good idea for girls to be in Boy Scouts, and they're changing the name to just Scouting. Now, it wasn't the Scouts that decided to do this. It was the leadership. As I understand it, one of the primary drivers is that membership's going down, and they needed to do something to bring more people in. I think I would probably agree at least at the earlier age levels, at the beginning of Scouts. Gender separation is probably a good idea. I don't think boys and girls should be separated in every aspect of life, because that's
I
lose a lot.
I don't say that at all. But what I do say is, give the boys the opportunity to be boys. I mean, I know the sayings out there says that let boys be boys, but honestly, it's kind of true. And girls are going to be girls, and girls mature at a different rate. Girls have different hormones. Guys have different. Let them learn about that from each other. Let them kind of explore that space. Let them develop that network that, I think that, and this is coming again from what I'm surrounded by myself a lot, is that, Gary, how many really close guy friends did you have growing older, right? What was your male support network like? I mean, is my even saying like male support network kind of just like discomforting?
It isn't because of some of my background, but I've only had a small, close handful. A lot of people that I know, and people that would back me up if I was in trouble. But the guys that that I talk to and can talk to about anything, that's a pretty small number.
Yeah. And that small number is like usually one hand for most men.
Oh yeah. One hand, and you could cut off a finger or three.
Yeah, and that probably stems a lot from, at an early age, right? Go out there, be the pitcher of the team. Go out there, be the quarterback of the team. Go do this solo act, and you've got to be number one all the time. This whole alpha everything, and men are supposed to be these great macho heroes and do everything on their own. Whereas, it might be a little bit easier if you had a more supportive cast of characters.
So
you might get that with a sex segregated group.
Yes,
but men brought that along. Men brought that type of thinking along, like you were saying. Everything, it doesn't matter if you have a supporting group. Everything. Men brought that type of thinking along.
Well, what I'm wondering is what are the odds? What's the situation with developing in a sex segregated group as boys are growing up from their across their preteens and into their teens, of also developing the misogynistic attitude that where does that get learned, that it is a race between men and women, and and get your edge, and women should be relegated to their specific roles in life, and these days they're invading men's territory. We're back to that men's thing again.
Yeah.
Does that start back then for some boys?
Kind of. I believe so.
So I think it starts at the home.
Yeah.
It starts at the home. It starts with your local community. It starts with where you go to church. It starts with, like I said, your community. It starts with your home.
Or the guy that made this ad and stuck it on Facebook.
Right. Well, absolutely. It starts with the media. Look at the media. Where are you spending your time? What are you reading? What are you watching? And who's paying attention to that? I mean, we're guilty of it as parents today. I mean, we were kind of in the side room. I walked in from the garage and asked my wife. I was like, "What are the kids watching?" She's like, "I don't know." And, kind of peered over. I'm like, "What are you guys watching?"
I can tell you they're watching YouTube.
Right. Well, I leaned over there and I saw what they were watching, and I didn't really pay too much mind to it, but they're probably learning some things that we probably don't want them to know. So a lot of it, like I said, it's community, it's the home, but a huge part of it's media. So Lee, you had said earlier, we brought this along, but really we've had it presented to us that this is kind of how it is. It's been on the big screen. It's been on the TVs. It's been in every magazine. It's been driven by commercialism.
Yeah, we just kind of helped it along in that sense. Yeah, I agree with you totally. They kind of presented it to us. We ran with it, and we've taken it further than it probably ever needed to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think I really want to weigh in on the Boy Scout deal, other than that's what Facebook has been shoving at me, and it's and the things that we were just looking at, those three posters that somebody made up with pregnant Girl Scouts saying what a great time they had at a Boy Scout camp out. That's coming from the right wing. It's not coming from the left wing, and I think that's part of why I think that Facebook thinks I am very conservative. This next one is even farther along that line. This is a poster that says, "We didn't hire Trump because we thought he had a squeaky clean past. We hired Trump to sweep out the trash in our corrupt government, and he's the only one that has the balls to do it."
Yeah.
America Trump strong. And from something called Trump 2020. I'm not sure what, I guess that's, like re-election thing. So that has showed up quite a bit in my Facebook feed. And I know why that's the case. I've got a lot of Facebook friends. I've got about 1,600 of them. Most of them are from my previous involvement in that ham radio thing. And those folks tend to be pretty conservative. So they're putting it out there like crazy. So it hits my Facebook feed.
Yeah, I don't get anything like that. I get none
you're
of that.
lucky.
Yeah, I feel lucky. Yeah, absolutely.
The thing I want to say about that, though, is what that poster tells me is that those of us on the left attempt to tell ourselves that we'd like to understand the mind of a Trump voter. We don't really want to know. We think that it's unknowable territory. To us, it is unknowable territory. But some of it is what, we got the understanding that a Trump voter felt alienated, felt like the government was corrupt, didn't like Hillary Clinton, didn't like Barack Obama, doesn't like Democrats in general. And although any Republican can take advantage of that sentiment, Trump managed to absolutely make an appeal to people that we never expected would come out of the woodwork the way that they did. At the election, everybody was surprised. Everybody was sure Hillary was going to win. And on election night, everybody was surprised, I think including Donald Trump.
I'll disagree with that.
You think that there are a few people. The 538 folks were saying, yeah, we actually kind of were thinking that might be more possible than most people did.
Well, that's the problem with the whole election system, when you can have more people that actually vote for a president, and then the Electoral College choose whoever they want to. Technically, they're supposed to go off who people vote, but they'll go off whoever they want to.
They always did. Every state that that brought their electors to the Electoral College voted in the Electoral College the way their state voted. It's just that although Hillary Clinton had a somewhat higher raw vote total, the way you divide things up with the Electoral
she
College.
She had a popular vote, but because, you have California and all that, all the big states where only have one or two electoral actual people in it.
Yeah.
You have a lot bigger popular vote than you do have the electoral vote, but the sad part is the electoral vote elects the president, not the popular vote.
Yeah, and that's the way it's been. The argument for doing that is that it keeps the most populous states from having a total concentration on swaying the way the election is going to go. And I don't know if I'm good enough at math.
But the biggest electoral college votes. So how does that make it even?
Well, I don't think I can do a good job.
They get the biggest college gate votes.
I don't think I can do a good job of explaining really how that works. It just that's the explanation that I hear. We have lost Brandon. I hope he'll able to dial back in.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. It's just your camera.
Did I lose my camera?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me. Sorry about that. I did put something in the chat window though for you guys. So let me try and get my camera back there for you.
Okay. Yeah. I can't look at the chat window when I've got things up on full screen.
Yeah, I can't either. So
Gotcha. And that's probably how I lost you. But I got about 20 minutes on me, guys.
Okay, and we'll be done.
Up.
Yeah,
sure.
So what I was going for is kind of early on. Trump. Is Trump a liar? Yeah, I think so. Some people will say he's not. I think the evidence is overwhelming, and the sense that I'm getting is, well, initially the response was, yeah, you got to take Trump seriously, but not literally. Okay, we got that part. We got that. So he says some things, and yeah, we get the attitude, but not maybe the technical details. And okay, I understand. You like the attitude. And then I started getting very overtly in my Facebook feed all of these doctored photographs that purported to prove something bad about left-wing people. One of the women, high school girls that was involved in the Parkland thing, was shown ripping up a Constitution. And well, she was ripping up a flag of white supremacy or something, and someone doctored it to show Constitution. And I saw that 50 times in my Facebook feed. And I would go back and say, no, that was look at Snopes. That was doctored. And the answer started coming back. We know, we don't care. And then you get this. We didn't hire Trump because we thought he had a squeaky clean past. Well, he also doesn't have a squeaky clean present. But this only wants to go with this only wants to go with the past. We hired him to sweep out the trash in our corrupt government. Is he doing that? Well, no, I don't think so, but the folks that put out something like that certainly do think so.
Well, here's the problem with that. Is all the people that point on that, it's not pointing to people in his cabinet or people in his thing. They're pointing to him. They're not pointing to anybody else. They're just wanting to get him out. They're not pointing into people that, the president's just a figurehead, really, honestly. It really is. You got people that have to vote for everything. He can do things, but he can, addict things, but it's just a figurehead. But the problem is, if you don't have people that support him, you're going to be shut out. And that's basically what you're explaining, is people want to shut out Trump. And I'm not saying Trump's a good president or a bad president. And there's no way in 4 years, in your first 4 years, you're really ever going to get anything done. That's the problem with the American system.
Yeah,
you're never going to get anything done in 4 or 8 years.
If you're a president of one party, and all of the Congress is strongly within your party, you should be able to get a bit more done.
If you change party no matter what, if you change party next election, you say you're Democrat one election, you go into Republican next election, the first 4 years that Republican is going to change everything you ever done.
They're going to
It's
try.
just fighting. They're going to try.
Yeah, they're going to
It's
try.
just fighting
Well,
back and
Trump
forth.
had the trouble
How
that
can we get into a settled type of economy when we're just fighting back and forth between each other?
well, that's going to keep on going. Trump had plenty of trouble because initially there was plenty of Republican opposition. The Never Trump movement, and lots of people totally denouncing him as a candidate and then not all that happy with him as the president. And for his first year, a lot of those folks had a lot of power in Congress and, pretty much fought what he was trying to get done. And so, he tried to get, mostly his first year, he was trying to repeal Obamacare. And between the folks that didn't want to repeal Obamacare and that didn't think he was going far enough, he couldn't get enough votes to make that happen. So he had a pretty ineffective first year with a full Republican Congress. And I think that it still shows the split that's still within the Republican Party, that they, it's kind of the elephant in their room, so to speak. And they don't want to make a big deal of it. He's getting more support, at least lip service support, but it's still a problem for him that a lot of Republicans don't see him as the standard bearer for their party. He's the president, but they don't like it, and I think that's what's going on now. I was noticing here that what I put in was that I really should be a big Trump supporter. I really should, because I don't like politicians that that are just mealy mouthed and won't take a stand and won't say what they mean. They're always spinning and trying to make everybody happy. And Trump surely didn't do that.
We'll give him that.
Yeah,
we'll give him that.
Well, and so I'm thinking. We start with, okay, so when you do say exactly what you mean and you put it all out there and you don't hide your feelings, well, that doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with you. Right. And so since I don't, I should at least be able to appreciate the idea that he says what he means. But I don't think he does. Pretty much
great
don't.
If he sounded like an intelligent human being, but he rarely does, and that's the problem with me.
Yeah, and that's the problem with me too, is that I do think he's got he hides his agenda, he covers things up, and is not really forthright in everything that he. Sometimes he is, sometimes he very much is, but enough where he's not. And of course, there's all the lying, so it makes it. When the guy comes on and he bold-faced lies to you and says that's, I'm coming out here and I'm saying it, I'm doing it, but it's all a lie. Well, you can't appreciate that either.
Right.
All right. One last topic here, at least one last topic, maybe one last topic because we're going to run out of time. The thing that we have been teasing for a while. In one of your most recent programs, you talk about that you are in recovery from alcoholism for about a year.
Yeah.
It must have been pretty rough for, because your kids are 8. So I don't know, how long did that last while your kids were
I think recovery from alcoholism, that's some pretty strong language.
Yeah, serious. Word, brother.
That is, but I would say, it's just I stopped drinking. I don't know.
Well, how bad was it?
Kind of. I mean, it wasn't like I had to drink to survive. It wasn't like I had to drink every day. But I did drink every day. I had a few beers every day. Like I drank a 6-pack probably a day, like every weeknight or something like that after work. It wasn't like I was drinking on the job or anything like that. But it was to the point where it was just interfering with life the way that I wanted to be living. And so I just kind of put it down and started enjoying my life a little bit in a different way, Yeah.
And so that being the case and being able to do that for a year is interesting. And I won't make a judgment on it because I'm not qualified to. I'm an alcoholic and a pothead, a drug addict. I don't make a distinction between drugs. Everything that warps your mind has addiction potential to it, and some more physically than others. And I'm listening to experts talk about what addiction is, and I still don't think they understand it. They don't understand it on my level anyway.
Right.
And I went in a downward spiral in the across the 1980s.
Okay.
And in 1988, I got to the point I'd left Chicago. I went running and screaming from Chicago, and ended up in Arizona, the disc jockey job in Arizona. Drunk every night, quitting early enough that I could actually function in the morning, and not drinking during the day, not getting high during the day. But the microsecond that I was leaving work, I was lighting up.
Yeah.
And on the walk home to my apartment, I was stoned by the time I got to the apartment. It was only a 3-block walk.
Right.
Every day. And on weekends, it started. If I woke up to pee at 4 o'clock in the morning, I would also take a hit.
Right, light it up.
Yep. And that was my life for getting worse and worse and worse across 9 years. And moved out to Arizona, hoping that I could leave that past behind. I did not. Lost the radio station job, not because I was drinking too much, but because I said the wrong things at the wrong time about the wrong people.
Sure.
On a small town radio station, you don't really do that.
Right.
And then I became practically agoraphobic. I couldn't barely leave my apartment, and just drunk all the time. And I got scared that I wasn't going to be able to get another job. I wasn't going to be able to go back to work. I wasn't going to be able to leave town. I wasn't going to be able to do anything. And I had cut out a little 1-inch notice in the newspaper for Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and shaking, scared across the threshold of the door into that meeting. There were about a dozen people there, and they were all having a good time. And I had no idea what to expect, and they, welcomed me in, new guy. They're happy to have a new guy.
Sure.
And just sit and listen. And then one by one, they talked about where they were, where they'd been, how they got there, and where they were now. And most of them didn't have, more than a year of sobriety. And then they said, the Narcotics Anonymous meeting in this town is small. We don't have a lot of experience. Do you ever drink? And I said, well, yeah, I drink when I can't get pot, or I drink when I can get pot. I said, okay, you're an alcoholic. Come with us to AA. There's 30, 40 people that typically attend those meetings. And that's where you're going to find the sobriety. That's when you find the history. And so I started doing that too. And that night, and this is an unusual experience. I stopped that night. Wow. And the only time I've been high since is when I've been at the hospital with kidney stones or a broken arm and got some morphine. And they sent me home with Percocet, which I did not take.
Right.
I could so easily start up again tomorrow.
Sure.
And one of the things that I learned was that AA doesn't work for very many people. AA works for maybe 5% of the folks that come in. And there's other ways that work. And if you've got a problem, you had a problem. From what you described to me so far, with my experience, you were an alcoholic. If you drink 5-6 beers a night, every night, you're an alcoholic. The fact that you stopped and you found a way to stop, there's probably more behind it than you've talked about so far. It could easily be a lot more behind it. You're a person of strong faith.
No, you're
not.
No,
okay, you're not.
No, not at all. Actually, I mean, I guess I've got some.
I got that impression from looking at some of the stuff on your website and.
I've developed. I think in the process of developing a faith, we'll figure it out as we go along.
Okay.
Building it as I go. I think there was one of the pieces of it was I got a blood test back that put me on the edge of I think diabetes and was related to drinking. I was supposed to go back for, and I still haven't. I'm actually due to go back to retest on that. And I was like, you know what? That was a part of it. It wasn't anything that I think was, there was it was no scare. Nobody said, "Hey, you're on the edge of dying" or anything like that.
Yeah. So you hadn't had any kind of
fights.
bottom.
No.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. What I found was that I started listing out like the things that I wanted to do and that I wasn't accomplishing. And, so I'd make like all this progress in like a week, or I felt like I was making progress and had all this momentum. And then I was like, and I wouldn't drink during a week. And this was for a little bit. I kind of, for a few weeks, we did. I don't know if you ever heard like the Whole30, where you don't drink or do like eat any carbs or sugar or a whole bunch of crap, right? For 30 days, and did that for like 30 days. It felt really good. And
I'm not familiar with that exact program. Every alcoholic I know has gone 30 days, and I did it. I was taking a program, the Werner Erhardt's EST program, back in the middle of the 80s, in the middle of all this for me.
Right.
And they said, if you want this program to work and you're going to be here a couple nights a week, you can't do any drugs or drinking while this program is going on, or you're not going to get any benefit from it. I'm not sure I got any benefit from it anyway, but I stopped.
Right.
But the minute that program was over, wham, I was back in.
Well,
how was it at the end of your 30 days?
At the end of my 30 days was fine. Like I didn't want to drink. I was happier. I was, and this was just like a diet that it wasn't like a drinking program. It was a diet that called for like not drinking. So I was happier. And then I didn't want to be the guy that was known as having the beer in my hand all the time. I'm a father too. You know what I mean? I didn't want to send that example to my kids anymore, and I wanted to be I wanted to do more. And drinking was getting in the way of that.
And so, to me, this is and for any individual, this is going to be complex. It's very hard to put a person in a box and say this is exactly the way it works for you.
Yeah,
and especially not saying that the way it worked for me is the way it worked for you. It's an unusual story that you were as far into it as you were and walked away that way.
I got a keg downstairs. I got a kegerator. I brew my own beer. I make my own wine. I love liquor. Nothing to it. It's just quite literally, it's just not what I want in my life anymore. And one of the ways that I kind of kept myself going along was like, dude, I can get in a car and drive whenever I want now. That's pretty awesome. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
But when I was in the middle of it, I got in a car and drove whenever I wanted to. Wasn't a good idea, but I did it.
I think it's a lot like AA, where you just got to find something greater than yourself to believe in and want more than just for yourself. And I think that's just another part of it. You know, that's it. Yeah,
and that's what they told me when I went to AA. And I went in as there's a chapter in what they call the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's their founding and stories about their founding and how they figured out what's going on. It's called We Agnostics, and that's the way I went in. I was not religious. I checked the none box.
Yeah.
I wasn't a strident atheist, but if you'd asked me, I would say, I'm agnostic by experience and atheist by faith, because I like to tweak that way. And they said, that's okay. It's clearly okay. Here's your chapter, and you just have to decide that in everything that you did, and for me for 9 years, everything that I did, and telling myself over and over that I wanted to stop, and saying, but it's going to be tomorrow. And tomorrow arrived and said, well, yeah, I want to stop, but it's going to be tomorrow. And seeing the problems develop and get worse. There's the usual thing. You start from wherever you start, and things are great. It adds to your life. It is fun. And then it becomes kind of even. Yeah, it's not so much fun anymore, but I still want to do it. And then it is problems, and then it is more problems. And it's no longer fun. It's hardly fun at all. You're chasing after the memory of the fun like crazy.
Yeah.
And you can't, if there's something else you want to be doing, you're probably not doing it because you are wasted.
Yeah.
So that was my experience. And so a power greater than myself, well, I didn't want to capitulate to come up with some conventional religion. And I say it can be anything.
Right.
or you can decide nothing, just to believe that there is something outside of you, because you failed. You didn't do it. You couldn't make this work. And if you do what is in this book, there's a chance that it will work for you. And so I followed that book. I'll use the word religiously.
Nice.
And I got hugely lucky, because it's worked. And I know in the back of my mind, the next time I get drunk will not be the last time I get drunk. It will start over again.
And you said that 30 years, man. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's why I don't go to meetings anymore, because I don't have anything to give to someone who's got 30 days. They can't conceive of 30 years. They can't conceive of 32 days.
Right.
So you found something too, and there's other ways to do it.
Yeah.
Lee, you've been quiet back there. I think it's because you muted your microphone.
Has he been talking the whole time?
I don't know.
Miss you?
I don't think so.
No. I've been quiet. Yeah.
So weigh in.
Give y'all time to
evangelize. Yeah. And now he's frozen.
I appreciate everything. Yeah, I know I'm pretty stupid video. But no, I approve everything y'all have. I mean, I'm not a guy that's going to stop drinking or whatever, but I mean, I know what y'all have gone through and what y'all said. It's just a learning experience. Everything's a learning experience, no matter what you go through.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing.
Well, the one aspect that we didn't even touch on was the denial. Because somewhere in the middle of my experience, I would tell myself, I could stop when I want. That's pretty much universal. And, and you would stop for a couple of days or a week or 30 days or whatever, and that would convince you, you could. It took a while till I got to the point where I couldn't believe that anymore. And the point where I really couldn't believe it is the day that I walked through that door. But the phrase in Alcoholics Anonymous is that alcohol or drugs are cunning, baffling, and powerful. They have a huge grip on someone that's in their grip and mess with your mind like crazy. And most people won't try to do something about that until things get really, really bad. So that's why your story is very unusual. If you indeed were really an alcoholic, when I hear anybody say, "Well, I get drunk every night," that's the big tip off. But
Sure.
even if people only do binging every weekend, it's still a tip off. But to be able to not have your whole life crash down and just say, "No, I realize there's things that I would want to do that I'm preventing myself from doing because I'm doing something that I'm not getting as much out of probably as I used to."
Yeah.
So
that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm what they would always refer to as a high bottom drunk. I didn't empty my bank account. I didn't rob a store. I didn't beat anybody up. I just sat in my room, slowly getting worse, and got out before I totally crashed everything.
Right.
But that's just a valuable story for people who are in exactly that situation. That's the story I can impart to someone that is right there now that says, that sounds just a little too familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little too plausible.
Yeah. So there's AA and NA meetings everywhere. And if anything that we've talked about, if anybody's hearing this and saying, yeah, maybe check it out. They'll be glad to have you stop in. You don't have to stay.
Yeah.
Lee, you were saying that you had tried it for a little while. Tried AA.
Yeah, I actually did it for about 2 months. I actually went clean. Everything, mainly what I did was just alcohol and weed. But I went clean for about 2 months here in Greensboro. I didn't have the greatest sponsors. I got right at the 2 month mark, and then my sponsors pretty much dumped me. Like, they didn't want me around anymore. Like, I called them everything. Anytime I was getting a, buzz or anything that I wanted to do things, they would never pick up the phone. So, you gotta really learn how to get a decent sponsor, but I did it for a little bit. It wasn't for me. Because I think my problems lie a lot more deeper than alcohol.
That's probably true for everybody.
My problem's a lot. Yeah. So
well, if you reach the point, if life gets worse and it is getting more in the way and you get scared, you hit whatever bottom it takes for you. If that happens, and I'm not predicting that it will. I'm
already hitting it.
What I'm giving you is a roadmap that if you find that you're following it, not that I'm predicting that you will, if you find that you're following it, then this is the roadmap that many of us have trod before you. And if you see our footprints and you say, yeah, I really kind of don't want to keep following that, then follow that set of footprints that took you out of it. You've seen what can be done at AA. Maybe you need a different program. Maybe another shot at AA would work. Maybe you can find something totally on your own. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not prescribing any one thing. It's like quitting smoking. There's a dozen different ways to do it, and one of those dozen could work for anybody, and most of the others might not. So if you find the one that works for you, that's the best I can offer.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll wrap it up. Lee, do you remember how we closed the show?
Over.
You're
I'm already skipping forward.
You're leading me a little bit. This is the Triangle Talk Show.
Yeah, well,
episode 5, our bull session, May 6, 2018. We have had Lee, Kal-El Clark. Superman's halo is a little bit tarnished here. Well,
no, it's still there.
Okay. All right.
It's still there. It's a little tarnished, but it's all right.
Brandon Handley, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, go take a look for that. I am Gary Pierce. It's been awesome fun, and I am going to say, oh, you said it. Go ahead and this is a 3-part close, and you will understand your word, Brennan, at the end. So, Lee, go ahead and say that first word again.
Over.
And
out.
See? Everybody gets it. Goodbye, YouTube. Last time I clicked the YouTube button a little too quickly and it cut things off. So leave a little pause.
Good job.